It was just past 11 in the evening as Benny Johansson's lean runner's legs propelled her into the bedroom. She wore tight jeans and a short-sleeved white blouse and had just concluded a 40-minute phone call. Her husband was sitting in bed, slouched on a pillow, and at 6'3", his legs nearly reached the end of the mattress. He was muscular, bare-chested, and projected a disciplined professional military aura he had gained as an attorney with JAG. He was watching the Cleveland Indians postgame report about another early season loss. "You really should become a Reds fan, Dylan," she said with a grin and a twinkle in her eye. Benny had dark brown eyes that hid until they sparkled, and teasing her husband brought out the gleam. "It kills me to watch you go through heartache year after year." He took his hands out from behind his neatly combed light brown hair, and he clicked off the television. He leaned forward, and his blue eyes followed her as she entered their walk-in closet. "Who were you talking to?" He suspected his lawyer wife had been called into the office to attend to an emergency with her bankruptcy practice at Wells and Whitehurst, the largest firm in Columbus, Ohio. Benny emerged with a dark green pantsuit on a hanger, and with her free hand she tugged at the back of her straight, shoulder-length, dark-rooted blonde hair. It was a creditor to O'Hare Airlines. After 2 days of board meetings, they concluded they couldn't go on without a restructuring, so they announced they were filing for bankruptcy protection a couple of hours ago. These airline proceedings go fast, so I've got to head into the office and get started. Bankruptcy? I thought they were doing great. That's what their creditors thought, too. But apparently the number of passengers has dropped sharply over the last few months, kind of unexpectedly. Huh? Dylan replied, frowning. I saw in the news that unemployment jumped up. I wonder what's going on. I have no idea, but bankruptcy attorneys do well when things go bad, Benny said. So it might be a good sign for me. Yeah, but you provide a great service, Dylan said. You get a lot of companies to survive when they would be lost completely without restructuring. Thank you, darling. Most people hate us, but what are you going to do? She reached up and began to unbutton her blouse with her slender fingers. And it's nice to hear a legal reform advocate have something nice to say about lawyers for a change. After 4 years as a JAG attorney and 2 in private practice, Dylan had grown disgusted with the legal profession, legal industry, he called it, and for the last 6 years had dedicated his career to fighting for major changes in the American legal system. End the age of lawyers was his slogan, and it was the rare case when he had anything complimentary to say about law or lawyers. It's easy to say nice things about a lawyer as beautiful as you, Dylan said, his eyes fixed on the action of her slender hands. I'm not going to be seeing much of you for the next few weeks, am I? Benny tilted her head to the side and smiled. Mr. Johansson, I need to get to the office. My clients want me to get started immediately. They're flying in from Korea tomorrow, and I need to be ready. Dylan looked up, and the left side of his mouth rose into a smile. Benny stared back at her husband. She sat down on the edge of the bed and brushed his cheek with a fingertip, then leaned over and gave him a soft kiss on the lips. I suppose I can make a little time for the love of my life before I disappear, she said with a soft southern drawl the Alabama native knew drove her husband wild. Benny entered a conference room at 1 a.m, where 3 yawning young associate attorneys were seated around a table with open laptops at the ready. A young man with black hair, dressed in khakis and a red golf shirt, looked at his watch. Heavy traffic, he asked. Benny closed her eyes and smiled. Isn't it kind of late to be a smart-ass, Derek? Although 6 years of law school and practice in New York City had nearly beaten all the humor out of her, the easygoing Midwest style of Columbus had helped her rediscover laughter. Nah, Derek said with a grin, never too late for that. And besides, as my dad used to say, better be a smart-ass than a dumbass. Benny chuckled and took a seat. That's very profound. She scanned the eyes of her associates. All right, you've got the gist of what we're looking at. O'Hare made an unexpected filing, and several of their creditors have retained us to represent them. Our clients are investment firms, one from Thailand, one from Brazil, and one from Korea. The Koreans are in the air right now, and we will meet with them later today, so we've got to get cracking. To begin with, what czar are we dealing with? The regional airline czar, said Carly, a slender, light-skinned black woman. She has a reputation of being pretty reasonable. Much better than the local charter and commuter airline czar, chimed in Monica, a freckled, red-haired woman. I hear he's a real doozy. Why do you say that? Asked Benny. I guess the first time he saw a propeller plane, Monica replied. He asked how the pilot could see past the tail. Benny scrunched her eyebrows. I don't get it. Monica put her hand over her mouth and began to chuckle. He thought the propeller went at the back of a plane, like a boat. She snorted. Benny put her hands over her eyes. Dear God. She cleared her throat. Okay, we got lucky with our czar here, but I'd still like a complete rundown on her background, how she's handled other airline bankruptcies, and so on. Volunteers? Carly raised her hand and shook her head, making her bun bobble. I've already been looking into her, so I might as well keep going. Benny nodded. Perfect, thanks, Carly. She pointed to Derek. Okay, you're my economics and finance guy. I want you to review all OAR's SEC filings, their business structure, who else they owe money to, what their labor contracts look like, all that jazz. She turned to Carly. When you get done with your czar research, give him a hand. No problem, the associate answered. Perfect. Now, Monica, I want you to look into our clients. We need to know more about them than they know about themselves. We need to know what else they're invested in, why they invested in OAR, etc., etc. Will do, Monica said. I will look into the political situation. With headquarters in Columbus and being the only airline with a hub here, this will undoubtedly be a very political proceeding. With our clients being foreign, there will be a lot of pressure to force them into concessions. We're not going to let that happen, Carly said, shaking her head. That's the spirit, Benny replied. She stood up. And now for the most important thing. Who wants to fill our IV bags with coffee? And so ends episode 2 of The Eagle Has Crashed. We'll move on to the second half of April 2029 next week. And of course, if you like what you've heard, you're more than welcome to buy a copy of the book. Paper copies can be purchased at clearpeakpress.com, Amazon.com, as well as BarnesandNoble.com. Ebooks are available from Barnes & Noble, Amazon, the iTunes Store, the Sony Store, and for almost every possible conceivable device you might have at smashwords.com. Thank you, and we'll be with you next week.